What is up, guys? My name is Lex. We are still here in Vegas. It's Friday night around 6 p.m. I've got Hustler Casino Live going on in the background right now. I'm about to hit a workout and then go to play a poker session. The last video I just released, I played a 10, 20, 40 game at the Bellagio and I got completely crushed, losing over $6,000 in about 3.5 hours, but I didn't give up. I came home, I took a break, I went back to the Bellagio a couple hours later and I won back all the money that I had lost in that session earlier. It was the craziest day of poker swings, down 6,000 even in just about 12 hours. It is a couple days later now, Friday night, and I have to figure out where I want to play. In the summer here in Vegas, there's so many different options. I could play at the Aria, the Wynn, Resorts World, Paris, Bellagio. I have no idea where I want to go, but I do know, I just checked Bravo and there is 3 10-20 games going on at the Bellagio. Now I know I said in my last video I don't want to play games that are too big for me and too tough for me, but I just can't help myself. I came to Vegas to battle. I want to play the biggest games possible. One of those games has got to be good, so we're going to head down to the Bellagio, check out that 10-20 game. If it's good, we'll stay. If it's bad, we'll move on. Let's get down to the table. Let's get to the action. Let's go. I get seated around 9 p.m. at the must-move game here at the Bellagio. It's 10, 20, 40. I buy in for $5,000, and the table lineup looks great. Only one other professional player that I recognize. I'm super card dead for the first hour, folding a bunch of hands, losing some straddles and blinds until we get Jack 10 of clubs. Small blind races to 100. I 3-bet the big blind to $300. There's a next to act player who calls, and then I realize that the small blind is actually the button. The button was in the wrong place, and I thought that the small blind raised, but it was really the button, and I'm the small blind, so instead of making it 400 or 450, I make it super tiny, 3x out of position. This was very odd. When the player raised to 100, the button was on his right, which made me think that he was the small blind, and then he moved it to his left, which is where the button should have been. I really don't know what happened. Maybe the dealer forgot to move it, or something weird happened here. I'm kind of annoyed because if I would have known I was a small blind, I would have 3-bet a lot bigger. Now I end up going pretty small and getting 4 callers, but the flop comes out 10 high. I put out a bet and everybody folds. We take down our first pot. When playing higher stakes, they usually have a main game table, which is the first game that started that day, and then they add on must-move games after that. When a player leaves the main game, they will take one player from the must-move game and add them to that game. This will allow at least one game to constantly be full and have people who have been playing all day always have players coming in. Now the problem with this is that a lot of recreational players will play for maybe 1 to 4 to 5 hours and then maybe bust or leave, and then a lot of professional players end up playing 8, 10, 12 hours, which means that the main game table is usually full of some of the best players in the room because they've been there the longest. Shortly after this Jack 10 of clubs hand, I get moved over to the second must-move table. There's one player sitting on my right with over $50,000 in his stack. This table is much tougher with a lot more professional players. With the $40 mandatory straddle on under the gun, it folds to me in the big blind with 6 of diamonds, 6 of spades, a hand we want to be raising here. I make it 4x out of position, $160, and the under the gun player makes a call. We see a pretty good flop of 8 deuce, 2 hearts. Given the fact that he did not 3-bet me pre-flop, we should have the best hand here a ton of the time. I throw out a c-bet of $160, and he raises me now to $500. He can be doing this with a wide range of hands, maybe a deuce, a pair beneath my pocket 6s, or possibly an 8, or a flush draw. Can't fold just yet, so I make the call. Turn king, I check, and he slows down and checks. River ace. The action goes check, check, and I win with pocket 6s. An interesting spot next up when the button raises to 100. I have ace queen in the big blind and re-raise to 400, and now the under the gun straddle puts in a cold 4-bet to $1,020. Action back over on me. I have about $5,000 left in my stack, and with the $40 straddle on, it's just a little over 100 big blinds. I don't think calling in this situation is the best thing. I think my options are folding or going all in. With ace-queen, I could be ahead of some of his ace-high bluffs like ace-5 or ace-4 suited, but I could also be drawing super thin against his hands like ace-king, pocket queens, kings, or aces. Ultimately, I decide to fold and move on to the next hand. A huge difference between this game and let's say an average 1-2 or 2-5 game is that these players play super aggressive pre-flop and post-flop. Just because my opponent put in a cold 4-bet to over $1,000 doesn't mean he's always going to have aces, kings, and queens. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe a 5-bet jam for $5,000 was the right play, but I decided to fold and try to wait for a better spot. We don't have to wait long to get into a better spot. The very next hand, we're in the small blind and look down at 2 blackjacks. The hijack raises to 120, and now the button puts in a 3-bet to 360, facing an open and a 3-bet with pocket jacks, the 4th best hand you can get pre-flop. I'm not going to be calling here. I put in a cold 4-bet myself. I make it $1,000. I have $4,000 left in my stack, and the hijack folds. The button with $20,000 in his stack decides to put me all in. I make this snap call. No way I'm folding pocket jacks for only $5,000. We decide to run out the board 2 times. My opponent tells me he's got ace king. The first board comes out jack high, giving us top set. The second board comes out queen high. All we have to do is fade an ace or a king to win a massive pot, and we do. The river's a deuce. Pocket jacks hold to win a $10,400 pot. My adrenaline is pumping, but I'm trying to keep my composure together. This table is full of professionals. I don't want them to know that this is one of the biggest pots I've really ever played in my life. I took a shot at this big game just a couple days ago and lost over $6,000. So now to come back and hold in a massive flip to have over a $10,000 stack, it feels pretty damn good. Another cool thing is that when my opponent paid me here, he gave me a $5,000 flag Bellagio chip, which is the first time I've ever won one of these in a poker game. It's pretty crazy how poker has changed for me in the last couple of years. Just 4 years ago, I was buying in at the 1-2 level for $100 to $200, and now 4 years later, I'm playing a 10, 20, 40 game, winning a $10,000 pot and getting my first ever $5,000 flag chip. We're now sitting over $10,000 deep at a very tough table. Let's hope to keep running good. Before we move on to the next hand, if you guys are not subscribed to my channel and you're watching the video, please take a second, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 45,000 subscribers by August 1st. If you're not already, hit that button. Moving on to the next hand, I get a beautiful ace queen of diamonds under the gun. I raise to 120. One of the only recreational players in middle position makes the call. Heads up to a very nice board of 9-4 deuce, all diamonds. We make the ace high flush. I continue for $200 and the cutoff makes the call. The turn card is the 6 of hearts. We continue to have the nuts here. I'm just praying he has the king high or maybe jack high flush or an overpair, maybe a set. So I size up big here on the turn. I make it $560, but no more value for us. He ends up making the fold. He shows me the jack of diamonds and folds, and I show him the ace of diamonds, hoping that it might look like I was bluffing there to help my image, and I think this actually comes back to bite us in the ass in this next hand. In these very aggressive pre-flop games, you want to be folding or 3-betting a lot of the time, but in this hand I have queen 10 of spades. The hijack makes it 100. I'm next to act and just call for one reason, and my one reason is because the recreational player at the table, the only player who I feel like I have an advantage on, is in the big blind. If I 3-bet, he will most likely fold, but if I call, he might get in there with a weaker hand, which is exactly what happens. He calls, and under the gun calls as well. The flop comes out ace, queen 10, rainbow. We flop 2 pair. When it checks over to me, I don't expect my opponents to have much here, so I down bet very small to $180, and the recreational player in the big blind is the only one who calls, which is exactly what we want. The turn card is a deuce, a total brick. He checks, and I bet small again, $240, and he makes the call again, so I put him on a lot of ace X holdings. Going here to the last card, which is a deuce, now pairing the board. One of the worst cards in the deck. Now our queen 10 2 pair is counterfeit. After getting this bad river, the big blind now leads into me for a $100 bet, a super tiny bet on this board, and all I can think here is that he's doing this to try to get a cheap showdown. I think he just has a weaker ace like ace 5 through ace 9, and he doesn't want to face a big bet by me. I'm almost certain he doesn't have a stronger hand like a straight a full house, or 2 pair because he would most likely be raising that up on the flop or the turn. So I have 3 options here. One is to fold versus a $100 bet. The other is to call and most likely always lose to an ace. And the third option is to turn my 2 pair into a bluff and put in a raise. I think calling is probably the best play here. However, I could have a ton of strong hands on this board. I could have a straight, I could have a full house, and I could have 2 pair like ace 10 or ace queen. The way my opponent played this hand, he really can't have any of those hands. Given the fact that he only has about $2,000 left in his stack, he seems to not want to put too much money in when he doesn't have a super strong hand. So instead of calling here, I decide to turn my 2 pair into a bluff, using my blockers, my tight image, and hoping he will fold an ace. I raise it up here to $860. Raising this river should look extremely strong, especially when I just doubled up my stack myself. I can have ace 10, ace queen, king jack, and full houses, but it doesn't matter to him. He makes a pretty quick call. We show our 3 pair, and it's not going to beat his ace 8 for a better 2 pair. I was hoping he would fold that hand, but we end up losing about $1,000 of our profit, getting pretty unlucky there on the river, and our bluff not working out. About an hour goes by and I don't play any significant hands until the small blind, the player with over $50,000 in his stack and one of the best players at the table, makes it $160. I call in the straddle with jack 9 off. The flop comes out king, jack, 6, 2 clubs. We flop second pair. He continues for $100, and for that small sizing, I make the call with my second pair. The turn is the 3 of diamonds. And now my opponent sizes up to a $700 bet. Facing a $700 bet, my opponent could be doing this with a variety of hands. He could have flush draws, straight draws for semi-bluffs. He could have overpairs, sets, and top pairs. Given the fact that I really can't improve that much with my second pair, against his sizing, I let this one go, and he shows me for the vlog that he flopped top pair, top kicker with ace king. Another hour goes by and there's an early position raise to 120. The big blind, a new player who is a recreational player not playing poker for a living but seems to know what he's doing, makes the call, and I make the call in under the gun with pocket 4s, and we hit a set on king 3-4 rainbow. We flop the second nuts and the big blind leads for 140. Now when he leads here, I think he's going to have a king X hand a lot of the time, possibly a straight draw with like 5-6 or 6-7. I don't want to raise on this super dry board. I want to allow the under the gun +1 player to potentially bluff or call with a worse hand. So I just call 140 and under the gun +1 calls as well. The turn card's the 5 of diamonds. It does bring in 2 straights. The one significant one would be 6-7, but I don't think the big blind's going to have that very often. He continues now for 300, and the action's back over on me. When the big blind leads on this flop and then continues on this turn for 300, I'm pretty sure he has a king X hand like king queen or king jack, possibly a 2 pair, king 3, or maybe even a set. I do think because we're 3 ways now and there's a flush draw and more straight draws, I want to be putting in a raise. However, this table's been playing extremely tight, no one really getting out of line, and not really calling down too light either, so instead of making it big here, for 3x, I just go a little over a 2x raise. I make it $700. I was tempted to continue to slow play here with my set, but given the fact that there's a player behind me who could have flush draws and straight draws, I don't want to price him in with those hands. I also want to try to cooler the big blind to the max if he does have a hand like king 3 or pocket 3s. So I make it $700. The action's back over on him with around $3,000 left in his stack. I'm hoping he calls and we can put in a big bet here on the river. But unfortunately, he shows a king and folds, which doesn't really surprise me. This game is playing super tight, nobody getting out of line. After a couple hours of playing, I call it quits here at the 10-20-40. I move over to the 1-3 game. I buy myself a beer and play a couple hands to unwind. In this hand, I raised to $10 with queen 7 offsuit with a Bud Light on my left. We go 4 ways to the flop with around $35 in the middle, and we completely miss. Cheers, guys. Decided to play a little 1-3 no limit as a relaxation cool down after my 10-20-40 game. Went much better this time than the last time. Last time I lost $6,000. Today ended up winning $3,500. Got super lucky holding pocket jacks versus ace king. 5-bet pot all in, over $10,000 in the middle. and I ended up winning that pot. Then I got a little out of line, queen 10 versus ace 8, turned that hand into a bluff on the river. I like the play, but I think I should be going much bigger. That particular opponent didn't seem like he wanted to get into the mix too much and put too much in the pot, so I think if I would have made it like 1500, maybe he would have folded. Don't hate it, don't love it either. The game was not that great, a lot of pros, a lot of tight pros too, really nobody getting out of line, so after a couple hours, ended up calling it quits and booking a win. But I really enjoy playing the 10, 20, 40 game. The players are fun to play with, even though they're very good. I can also learn from them as well. They're some of the best players in Vegas and in the room, and I just enjoy playing at those high stakes. I'm hoping that by playing those high stakes games, that when I go back down to the lower stakes, it's going to feel easier. That's kind of the goal. But I'm going to be here in Vegas for one more week. Going to be making a lot of videos for you guys, so stay tuned for that. If you're not already, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to that 45,000 subscriber mark. So if you watch the videos and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Videos like this every single week. All right, until next time, I'll see you.